Hello. So a few videos ago I mentioned the dry brush technique and how I was going to do a future video on the dry brush technique. And here it is. So what you do with the dry brush technique is if you have something with raised surfaces, you can go over it lightly, do a base coat, then go over it lightly with a different color and you get different effects. And so you may have noticed the past few videos I've had Rocky the Dragon out and he's got his base paint on already. If you look closely, you can see he's got raised scales, so he's a good one for doing the dry brush technique on. So I did his base coat in marine teal, and I'm going to do his scales in a sapphire blue. I'm going to make him a blue dragon. And that's the first thing you got to do is you got to decide what your color scheme is going to be. And it really depends on what you're going to do. And this is something that takes some experimentation. So all you do, take your palette, whatever you're using to mix colors on, or to put a little of your blue on it. Then you want your thin brush, and this used to be thin. It's I've used it for a while, so it's gotten a little fluffy. I got to replace it. You want just a little bit of paint on the tips. Then you want to just sort of do that on your palette until you get it a little dry. Because what you're doing here is you're just wanting to put just enough paint on, and that was a little too dry, just enough paint on that it's going on the surface and not going into the cracks basically. And you only need to use the tip of your brush. Whoops, that's still a little wet now. And you're just going to lightly brush it across, hoping that it doesn't go into the cracks basically. And this is going into the cracks more than I wanted to. Let's try a little on this side now that the brush is a little cleaner. Again, I don't edit my videos, so I am not going to paint another Rocky and try to redo this. You're going to get it how it looks. And so, I mean, you can see it went into the cracks a little more than I was hoping it would. And the light's starting to dim on me here, so it might be a little hard to see. But that's basically the technique. And anywhere where he's got upraised scales, you just brush over lightly. Now, one of the hard things about this, if I hold it up close, you may notice around the wings and stuff, I'm having trouble getting in there with the brush. And so I'm going to use you can use one of your finer tip brushes for this. Just go in and carefully dab on. Or, you can just try to touch it up continually with this. You can find a smaller flat tip brush. Yeah, these will hold a lot of paint, so it's really hard to get it light. And also, it takes a while to wash these out because paint's going to soak in that you're not using. So you've got to. That's one of the reasons why the flat tipped brushes wear out so quickly, is because one, when you're flipping it on your palette here to get it dry, you're damaging it, and then you got to wash it extra hard or extra long or extra effort into washing it, just because it will soak up more paint than you need, and that'll dry inside the brush. And yeah, it's about as good as I'm going to be able to get him without getting into spots where the wings get in the way. So I got some other examples though. Like I said, it takes a while to clean the brush off. Sometimes, especially with, you can still see there's still blue on the brush. So like this guy, when I did my last one, I used a lot of dry brush on him. And so what I did here was I did a basic base of, I think, maroon. Then the tentacles, I dry brushed a brown over it, so you'd get the cracks showing the maroon through, and you'd have the maroon around the eyes. And then I did a gray over the body, which you can see I left the gray around the lips. Then I did a greenish color over that. So I sort of double dry brushed this guy. Nearly forgot. Werewolf. I like to dry brush the werewolves. They're good ones to work on. Again, you just, base of brown, dry brush of, I did gray on this guy. You can, these are good for experimenting on colors. Anything with scales, so base of green, dry brushed yellow over it. This was an older one I've done, so it's not as well done as some of the others. Hair. Like, if they have texture in the hair, which not all minis do, you can do it. So, do I want a guy with gray hair, or do I want a guy with graying hair? And graying hair, it's just a base coat of what his natural hair color was, and then dry brush some gray or white over it. And so, instead of just having one tone hair, and you can do this with other hair colors, blonde, I've done some figures, blonde hair, it's all yellow, because that's the way the mini was made. Others, where they've got some texture to their hair, I'll do a base coat of tan or brown, and then do a yellow dry brush over it. So it looks more like real hair, because hair isn't all one solid color. The good salt and pepper look got going on here looks great. Chainmail. So it might be hard to tell here, but this guy is wearing chainmail underneath some of his. Actually, you can see it on his back better. And all I did there was I did a base coat of black and then did a silver dry brush over it. And you'd think, neither black or silver are chainmail colors, but when you do them together and look at it from a distance, it looks pretty good, in my opinion. Other things, this guy's little loincloth mail thing here, I did similar thing. Got fur in the back here, so again, dark color and a lighter, dark brown, light brown over it. Yeah, my light's not very good here. So that's it. That is the dry brush technique. It's a way of, making something that looks really detailed, doing it really quick. And so it doesn't take as much time as it looks like it should take. Again, some of them, just, the shape of them, it is going to take a little longer still just because of the shape of the figure. And, some of the details are trying to work around. I will have to retouch this. When I go in to do his eyes and his wings and stuff, there's a chance I will spill paint, and I'll have to go and retouch it. And with that, the dry brush can be a little tricky to do, but it still works. That is it. That is the dry brush technique. Have a nice day.